Hey, welcome back, my friend. Before we start today's lesson, let's have another fun challenge. Don't worry if you don't know every answer. Just answer loudly with yes or no. Remember, learning is not about being perfect. It's about improving every single day. Ready? Let's begin. Can SQL Server store information even after you turn off your computer? Yes. Excellent. That's why databases are so powerful. If SSMS is closed, does SQL Server automatically stop working? No. Great answer. SQL Server runs as a separate service. Can one SQL Server contain multiple databases? Yes. Fantastic. That's one of SQL Server's powerful features. If you accidentally close SSMS, will all your databases be deleted? No. Not at all. Closing SSMS only closes the management tool. Can SQL Server run without SSMS installed? Yes. Excellent. SSMS is a management tool, not the database engine itself. If SQL Server isn't running, can SSMS connect to it? No. Correct. The SQL Server service must be running first. Is localhost commonly used as a server name? Yes. Very good. Can a server name be different on another computer? Yes. Exactly. Every computer can have a different SQL Server instance name. Should we always verify the server name before clicking Connect? Yes. Perfect. Can Windows Authentication use your Windows login credentials? Yes. Excellent. If the SQL Server service is stopped, should we check services? MSC. Yes. That's one of the quickest troubleshooting methods. Can SQL Server Configuration Manager help us identify SQL Server services? Yes. Correct. Is Object Explorer displayed after a successful connection? Yes. Great memory. Can Object Explorer help us manage databases and tables? Yes. Exactly. Before creating a table, do we need a database? Yes. Excellent. A table always belongs to a database. Can we write SQL queries inside SSMS? Yes. Perfect. Should we panic if the connection fails the first time? No. Every problem has a solution. Just troubleshoot step by step. Can practicing the connection process improve your confidence? Yes. Absolutely. Practice makes progress. Is SQL Server used only by software developers? No. Database administrators, data analysts, business intelligence professionals, and many others use SQL Server too. Can one mistake teach us something valuable? Yes. Every mistake is another learning opportunity. Do professional developers still use SSMS every day? Yes. They certainly do. Are you becoming more comfortable with SQL Server after every lesson? I hope your answer is yes. Fantastic. Are you excited to explore the SQL Server Management Studio interface? Yes. Today's lesson is going to be exciting. Will understanding the SSMS interface help you work faster? Yes. Exactly. Knowing where everything is saves time. One final question. Are you ready to take another step toward becoming a SQL Server professional? I knew your answer would be yes. Fantastic. Now, let's begin Lesson 6 and explore the SQL Server Management Studio interface together. Welcome back. Before we explore the SQL Server Management Studio interface, I'd like to share a simple thought with you. Knowing your tools is just as important as knowing your skills. Imagine giving a carpenter the best set of tools. If they don't know what each tool does, building something becomes difficult. The same is true in software development. SQL Server is powerful, but to use it efficiently, you must first understand the environment you're working in. That's exactly what today's lesson is all about. we'll explore the SQL Server Management Studio interface together. By the end of this lesson, you'll know where everything is. You'll understand the purpose of the Object Explorer. You'll recognize the menu bar and toolbars. You'll know where to write SQL queries. And you'll feel much more comfortable working inside SSMS. Remember, every professional developer was once confused by a new interface. The difference is, they stayed curious, they explored, they practiced, and slowly everything became familiar. Don't try to memorize everything in one day. Instead, understand one section at a time. Practice one feature at a time. Improve one day at a time. Because small improvements, repeated consistently, create extraordinary results. So stay curious. Keep learning. Keep practicing. And let's explore the SQL Server Management Studio interface together. Let's begin today's lesson. Welcome back. Now that we've completed our recap and motivation, it's time to begin today's lesson. Today, we're going to explore the SQL Server Management Studio, commonly known as SSMS, interface. When you open SSMS for the first time, you might see many menus, buttons, windows, and panels. At first glance, it may look a little confusing. But don't worry. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand what each major section does. Think of SSMS like the cockpit of an airplane. A pilot doesn't press every button at once. Instead, the pilot learns what each control does, one step at a time. In the same way, today we'll learn the SSMS interface section by section. Let's first understand the overall layout. When SSMS opens successfully, you'll usually see these important areas: Menu bar, Toolbars, Object Explorer, Query Editor, Properties window, Status bar. Each section has a specific purpose. The menu bar gives you access to almost every feature in SSMS. The toolbars provide quick shortcuts to commonly used commands. The Object Explorer helps you browse and manage databases, tables, views, stored procedures, and many other SQL Server objects. The Query Editor is where you'll write and execute SQL commands. The Properties window displays detailed information about the object you've selected. Finally, the status bar shows useful information such as the current server connection and execution status. Don't try to memorize everything right now. Our goal today is simply to become familiar with the SSMS workspace. In the next few slides, we'll explore each section one by one with practical examples. By the end of this lesson, navigating SSMS will feel much more comfortable and natural. Let's continue. Welcome back. In the previous slide, we looked at the overall layout of SQL Server Management Studio. Now, let's begin with the very first part of the SSMS interface: the menu bar. The menu bar is located at the very top of the SQL Server Management Studio window. Think of it as the main control center of SSMS. Almost every feature and command in SSMS can be accessed through the menu bar. If you've used applications like Microsoft Word, Excel, or Visual Studio, the menu bar will already look familiar. Let's look at some of the most commonly used menus. File. The File menu allows you to create a new query, open existing SQL files, save your work, print scripts, and exit SSMS. You'll use this menu almost every day. Edit. The Edit menu helps you work with your SQL code. You can cut, copy, paste, undo, redo, find text, and replace text quickly. These shortcuts make coding much faster. View. The View menu controls what windows are visible inside SSMS. If you accidentally close Object Explorer or the Properties window, don't panic. Simply go to View and reopen it. Query. The Query menu contains commands related to SQL execution. From here, you can execute queries, parse SQL code, cancel running queries, and access other query-related options. You'll use this menu frequently as you begin writing SQL statements. Tools. The Tools menu contains settings and options that let you customize SQL Server Management Studio. As you become more experienced, you'll use this menu to configure fonts, keyboard shortcuts, themes, and other preferences. Help. Finally, the Help menu provides documentation, version information, and access to learning resources. Whenever you're unsure about a feature, the Help menu is a great place to start. Here's something important to remember. You don't need to memorize every menu today. Just understand where they are and what type of tasks they help you perform. As you continue practicing SQL Server, using the menu bar will become second nature. In the next slide, we'll explore the toolbars, which provide quick one-click shortcuts to many of these same commands and help you work even faster. Let's continue. Welcome back. In the previous slide, we explored the menu bar, the main control center of SQL Server Management Studio. Now, let's move to the next important part of the SSMS interface. The toolbars. The toolbar is located just below the menu bar. Think of the toolbar as a shortcut panel. Instead of opening menus every time, the toolbar gives you quick access to the commands you use most often. This helps you work faster and improves your productivity. Let's look at some of the common toolbar buttons. Connect. The Connect button allows you to connect to a SQL Server instance. Whenever you want to switch to another server, this button helps you do it quickly. New Query. One of the most frequently used buttons is New Query. Clicking this button opens a new query editor window where you can write SQL statements. You'll be using this button almost every day. Execute. After writing your SQL query, click the Execute button to run it. You can also press the F5 key as a shortcut. Once the query runs successfully, you'll see the results below the query editor. Stop execution. If a query takes too long or runs by mistake, you can click the Cancel Executing Query button. This immediately stops the running query. Database Selector. The toolbar also contains a database drop-down list. This lets you quickly choose the database where your SQL query will execute. Always check the selected database before running your queries. Other shortcut buttons. You'll also notice buttons for Open SQL Files, Save Scripts, Print, Refresh, Copy, Paste, Undo, Redo. As you gain experience, these shortcuts will save you a lot of time. Here's an important tip. You don't need to memorize every toolbar button today. Focus on the 4 most important ones. White heavy checkmark Connect. White heavy checkmark New Query. White heavy checkmark Execute. White heavy checkmark Database Selector. These are the buttons you'll use in almost every SQL Server session. In the next slide, we'll explore one of the most powerful sections of SSMS. The Object Explorer, where you'll manage databases, tables, views, stored procedures, and many other SQL Server objects. Let's continue our SQL Server journey. Welcome back. So far, we've explored the menu bar and the toolbars. Now, let's learn about one of the most important sections in SQL Server Management Studio. Object Explorer. If the menu bar is the control center, then Object Explorer is the navigation center of SSMS. This is the place where you'll spend most of your time while working with SQL Server. The Object Explorer is usually located on the left side of the SSMS window. It displays everything inside your SQL Server instance in a tree structure, just like the folders in Windows File Explorer. Let's expand the SQL Server instance. The first folder you'll usually see is Databases. This folder contains all the databases available on your SQL Server. When you expand a database, you'll find many important objects such as tables, views, programmability, security, synonyms, storage. Let's understand the most common ones. Tables. Tables are where your actual data is stored. For example, customer details, employee records, product information, sales transactions. Almost every application stores its information inside tables. Views. Views are virtual tables created using SQL queries. They help simplify complex queries and improve security by controlling how data is displayed. Programmability. This section contains objects such as stored procedures, functions, database triggers. As you progress through this course, you'll learn each of these topics in detail. Security. The security folder allows database administrators to manage users, logins, roles, and permissions. This helps protect your data from unauthorized access. One of the best features of Object Explorer is that you can click almost any object. A right-click opens a shortcut menu with useful options such as New, Modify, Delete, Refresh, Properties, Script. This makes database management much faster and easier. Here's something important to remember. You don't need to understand every folder today. Our goal is simply to become familiar with the layout. As we continue building databases, creating tables, inserting data, and writing SQL queries, you'll naturally become comfortable using Object Explorer. In the next slide, we'll explore the query editor, where you'll write and execute your very first SQL commands. Let's continue. Welcome back. In the previous slide, we explored the Object Explorer, the place where we manage databases and other SQL Server objects. Now, let's move to another important section of SQL Server Management Studio. The Query Editor. The Query Editor is where you'll spend most of your time writing SQL commands. Think of it as your workspace. Just like Microsoft Word is used to type documents, the Query Editor is used to write SQL code. Whenever you click the New Query button, a new Query Editor window opens. This is where you'll create databases, create tables, insert data, update records, delete records, and retrieve information. In short, almost everything you do in SQL Server begins in the Query Editor. Let's look at a simple SQL statement. SQL, select getDate. This command displays the current date and time from SQL Server. Don't worry if you don't understand the syntax yet. We'll learn every SQL command step by step in the upcoming lessons. After writing your SQL statement, simply click the Execute button or press the F5 key. SQL Server will process your command. If the command is successful, you'll see the output in the results window below. If there's a mistake in your SQL code, SQL Server will display an error message in the Messages tab. Don't be afraid of errors. Even experienced developers see error messages every day. The important thing is to read the message carefully, understand the problem, and fix it. Remember, programming is not about writing perfect code on the first attempt. It's about learning, improving, and solving problems one step at a time. As you continue this course, you'll become more comfortable writing SQL queries. Soon, you'll be creating databases, tables, and reports with confidence. In the next slide, we'll explore the Results window, Messages window, and Properties window, and understand how they help us analyze query execution and troubleshoot problems. Let's continue our SQL Server journey. Welcome back. In the previous slide, we learned about the Query Editor, where we write and execute SQL commands. Now let's explore 3 important sections that help us understand the outcome of our SQL queries. These are Results window, Messages window, Properties window. These sections provide valuable information every time you execute a SQL query. Let's understand them one by one. Results window. The Results window appears below the Query Editor after you execute a query that returns data. For example, if you run SQL, select star from employees, the Results window displays the returned records in a table format. You can view rows and columns just like a spreadsheet. Whenever you retrieve data from SQL Server, you'll spend a lot of time looking at the Results window. Messages window. Next is the Messages window. This section displays messages generated by SQL Server. If your query executes successfully, you'll see confirmation messages such as "Command completed successfully." If there's an error in your SQL statement, the messages window tells you exactly what went wrong. For example, incorrect SQL syntax, invalid table name, invalid column name, permission denied. Don't ignore these messages. Professional developers carefully read the messages window because it helps them solve problems quickly. Properties window. Now let's look at the Properties window. Whenever you select a database, table, or another SQL Server object, the Properties window displays detailed information about that object. For example, it can show object name, data type, size, owners, creation date, other configuration details. Instead of searching through multiple menus, you can quickly view important information in one place. Important tip: whenever you execute a SQL query, develop the habit of checking these three areas: Results window, Messages window, Properties window. Together, they help you understand what happened after your query was executed. As you continue learning SQL Server, these windows will become an essential part of your daily work. In the next slide, we'll summarize everything we've learned about the SQL Server Management Studio interface and prepare for hands-on practice. Let's continue. Welcome back. Congratulations. You've successfully explored the major components of the SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS, interface. Let's take a few moments to review everything we've learned in today's lesson. We started by understanding the overall layout of SQL Server Management Studio. Then we explored the menu bar, which gives us access to almost every command and feature available in SSMS. Next, we learned about the toolbars, which provide quick shortcuts for commonly used actions like connecting to a server, opening a new query, executing SQL commands, and selecting databases. After that, we explored the Object Explorer, the navigation center of SSMS. We learned that Object Explorer helps us browse and manage databases, tables, views, stored procedures, security settings, and many other SQL Server objects. Then we moved to the Query Editor, our primary workspace for writing and executing SQL commands. We also learned how to execute queries using the Execute button or the F5 shortcut key. Finally, we explored the Results window, Messages window, and Properties window. These windows help us view query results, understand error messages, and inspect the properties of SQL Server objects. Now, let's remember one important idea. Every professional SQL Server developer uses these sections almost every day. The more familiar you become with the SSMS interface, the faster and more confident you'll be when writing SQL queries and managing databases. Don't try to memorize every button or menu today. Instead, spend a few minutes exploring the interface on your own. Click different menus. Open Object Explorer. Create a new query window. Observe the Results and Messages tabs. The goal is simple. Become comfortable navigating inside SQL Server Management Studio. In the next slide, you'll complete a hands-on practice assignment to reinforce everything you've learned today. Learning by doing is always the best way to build confidence. Let's continue. Welcome back. Excellent work. You've now learned the major sections of the SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS, interface. But remember, watching a lesson is only the first step. Real learning begins when you practice. So let's complete today's hands-on assignment. Practice Activity 1. Open SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS. Take a few moments to simply observe the entire interface. Can you identify these sections? Menu bar, toolbars, Object Explorer, Query Editor, Results window, Messages window, Properties window. If you can identify all of them without looking at your notes, you're making excellent progress. Practice Activity 2. Click the New Query button. A new query editor window should open. Don't write anything yet. Just observe where SQL commands will be written. Practice Activity 3. Type the following SQL statement. SQL. Select GetDate. Now click the Execute button or press F5. Did the query execute successfully? Great. Look at the results window. You should see the current date and time returned by SQL Server. Now click the Messages tab. Notice the success message displayed by SQL Server. Learning to read both the results and messages windows is an important habit. Practice Activity 4. Click different databases in the Object Explorer. Observe how the Properties window changes based on the selected object. This helps you understand how SSMS displays information dynamically. Challenge for today. Without referring to your notes, try to explain the purpose of each of these sections in your own words. Menu bar, toolbars, Object Explorer, Query Editor, Results window, Messages window, Properties window. If you can explain them clearly, you've successfully completed today's lesson. Congratulations! You're becoming more comfortable with SQL Server Management Studio every day. In the next slide, we'll summarize today's lesson and prepare for the next exciting chapter in your SQL Server journey. Let's continue. Welcome back. Congratulations. You've successfully completed Lesson 6, SQL Server Management Studio Interface. Let's quickly review what you've learned today. First, you explored the overall SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS, interface. You learned that SSMS is the primary tool used to manage SQL Server databases and execute SQL commands. Next, you understood the purpose of the menu bar and how it provides access to all major commands and features. Then you learned about the toolbars, which offer quick shortcuts for common tasks such as connecting to a server, opening a new query, and executing SQL statements. After that, you explored the Object Explorer, where you can browse and manage databases, tables, views, stored procedures, security settings, and many other database objects. You also discovered the Query Editor, your main workspace for writing and executing SQL commands. Finally, you learned how the Results window, Messages window, and Properties window help you understand query results, identify errors, and inspect object details. Take a moment to appreciate your progress. Just a few lessons ago, SQL Server Management Studio may have looked confusing. Now you understand the purpose of each major section and know how to navigate the interface with confidence. That's a big achievement. Before moving to the next lesson, I have one small challenge for you. Open SQL Server Management Studio and spend 10 to 15 minutes exploring the interface on your own. Click different menus. Expand Object Explorer. Open multiple Query Editor windows. Execute the sample query. SQL. Select GetDate. Observe the Results and Messages windows. The more you explore today, the easier your future lessons will become. Next lesson preview. In Lesson 7, we'll create our first database in SQL Server. You'll learn what a database is, how to create a new database using SSMS, how to rename a database, how to delete a database safely, best practices while managing databases. This is where your hands-on SQL Server journey truly begins. I'm excited to see you in the next lesson. Until then, keep learning, keep practicing, and keep building your SQL Server skills. See you in Lesson 7. Congratulations! You've successfully completed Lesson 6 of the JeyB SQL 100 SQL Server Mastery course. Today, you took an important step toward becoming a confident SQL Server professional. You explored the SQL Server Management Studio, SSMS, interface, and learned the purpose of its most important components. You now understand the menu bar and how it provides access to SQL Server commands, The toolbars, which help you work faster with one-click shortcuts. The Object Explorer, your navigation center for managing databases and SQL Server objects. The Query Editor, where you'll write and execute SQL commands. The Results, Messages, and Properties windows, which help you understand query execution and troubleshoot issues. These are the tools you'll use throughout your SQL Server journey. Remember, every expert once opened SSMS for the very first time. The only difference is that they kept exploring, practicing, and learning. And now you're doing exactly the same. Before you leave, I have a small challenge for you. Open SQL Server Management Studio once again, and spend a few minutes exploring every menu, toolbar, and window without referring to your notes. The more familiar you become with the interface, the easier the upcoming lessons will be. In our next lesson, the real hands-on journey begins. We'll create your first database in SQL Server. You'll learn how to create, rename, and safely delete databases using SQL Server Management Studio. It's going to be one of the most exciting lessons in this course. Before you go, if you found this lesson helpful, please support JeyB Tech Academy. Like this video, Speech Balloon share your questions or feedback in the comments. Outbox Tray share this lesson with your friends and colleagues. Bell subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new SQL Server lesson. Your support encourages me to create more practical, beginner-friendly SQL Server tutorials for everyone. Thank you for learning with me today. Keep learning, keep practicing, keep improving, and remember, small daily progress leads to big success. I'll see you in Lesson 7. Until then, happy learning.